Picture a monastery library in rural Ethiopia. The year is 1398. A monk named Abba Garima is copying an ancient manuscript that survived the Roman purges, a text whispered about but never publicly discussed. His hands tremble as he reaches a specific passage, a teaching attributed to Jesus during the 40 days after resurrection. Instructions about one food, one simple substance that every follower should keep in their home, not for nutrition, not for survival, for something the church authorities spent centuries trying to erase from collective memory. The monk makes a choice. He copies the passage, but he codes it. He embeds inside a parable that sounds innocent to casual readers. Then he seals the manuscript and prays that someday, someone with eyes to see will understand what he preserved. 6 centuries later, you found this video. And before you assume this is about communion bread or Passover wine, understand something critical. This teaching predates those rituals. This teaching comes from a conversation Jesus had in private when he knew his time with the disciples was ending, when he needed to give them something tangible, something physical they could hold on to that would keep them connected to the transmission. Right now, if you are watching this because something pulled you here, because you have always felt there were teachings hidden beneath the surface of mainstream Christianity, leave one word in the comments. Ready. Just that word. And make sure you subscribe in the next 15 seconds, because what is coming goes places that YouTube does not want this channel to reach. One click. Turn on notifications. The algorithm is already trying to bury this. Your subscription tells it that people are hungry for what was stolen. What I am about to share is not speculation. It is documented in texts that sat in the Vatican archives for generations, texts that scholars are forbidden from translating, texts that reveal early Christians practiced something completely different from what you see in churches today. One food, 7 reasons Jesus commanded it, 3 ways it changes your spiritual biology. And by the end of tonight, you will understand why every home that practices true Christianity, not the domesticated version, not the Sunday morning performance, but the original path Jesus taught, keeps this food present at all times. Take a breath, slow and deep. Let your body settle, because what you are about to receive requires you to unlearn something you have been taught since childhood. You have been told that communion, that ritual of bread and wine, is symbolic, a metaphor, a way to remember. But the earliest Christian communities did not treat it as symbolic. They treated it as technological, as a physical substance that altered consciousness, that opened perception, that created a vibrational match between the human body and what the Gnostics called the Christos frequency. And the key to that technology was not the bread. It was not the wine. It was something that accompanied every meal in first century Judea, something so common that it was overlooked, something so powerful that later church authorities removed every reference to its spiritual function. The food Jesus said to always keep in your home is salt. Not just any salt. Sacred salt. Mineral salt. Salt that has not been stripped, bleached, and processed into the dead chemical sodium chloride that sits on modern tables. Salt that carries the full spectrum of minerals and trace elements. Salt that holds memory. Salt that conducts frequency. Before you dismiss this, before your rational mind tells you this is too simple, too ordinary, hear what was written in the Gospel of the Hebrews, a text declared heretical in the 4th century, but quoted extensively by early church fathers before it was banned. Jesus says this: "The salt of the earth are those who carry the covenant in their bodies. Let your offerings be seasoned with salt. For without salt, no offering reaches the Father. Keep salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another." Mainstream scholars read that passage and assume it as metaphor, but the community that walked with Jesus understood it literally. They understood that salt was a physical anchor for spiritual transmission. They understood that the human body, which is made of water, requires salt to conduct electrical signals between cells. And they understood that specific types of salt harvested from ancient seabeds, salt rich in minerals that mirror the exact composition of human blood, creates a resonance that allows higher frequencies to move through the body without resistance. This is not mysticism. This is physics. Your nervous system operates on electrical impulses. Those impulses move through water. Water conducts electricity only when it contains dissolved minerals. The primary mineral that enables this conduction is salt. When Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth," he was not giving compliment. He was stating a biological and spiritual fact. The chosen ones, the ones capable of holding and transmitting the Christ frequency, are the salt. They are the conductive medium through which divine energy enters the material world. Now, let me show you what the church erased. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, specifically in the community rule document, there are detailed instructions for ritual meals practiced by the Essenes, the Jewish sect many scholars believe Jesus was trained by. Every meal began with a blessing over salt, not bread, salt. The salt was placed on the tongue first, before any food was consumed, and the prayer spoken over it was this: Blessed are you, Lord our God, who has given us a covenant of salt, eternal and unbreakable, the covenant of salt. This phrase appears multiple times in the Hebrew Bible. In Numbers, God makes a covenant of salt with Aaron and his descendants. In Chronicles, God makes a covenant of salt with David. But modern preachers skip over these verses because they do not know what they mean. A covenant of salt is a binding agreement that cannot be dissolved. In ancient Near Eastern culture, when two parties shared salt, they became family. The salt entered their bodies, entered their blood, and created a biological bond. Betraying someone you shared salt was the ultimate violation. Jesus understood this at a level most cannot grasp. When he said, "This is my body, this is my blood," he was not creating a new ritual. He was pointing to an ancient technology that salt activates. He was saying, what I am giving you becomes part of your cellular structure. We are bonded now, not through belief, but through biology. Place your hand on your heart right now. Feel the rhythm. That heartbeat depends on electrical signals regulated by sodium and potassium channels in your cells. Without salt, your heart stops. Without salt, your brain cannot fire. Without salt, your muscles cannot move. You are not just spiritually connected to salt. You are biologically dependent on it for every single function that keeps you alive. And Jesus knew this. He knew that the same substance that keeps your physical heart beating is the substance that allows your spiritual heart to open. Here is what happens when you consume sacred salt with intention. The mineral matrix enters your bloodstream. Your blood, which is almost identical in composition to ancient seawater, recognizes the salt as native, not foreign. Native, the salt integrates immediately, and as it does, it increases the conductivity of every cell. Thoughts move faster. Intuition sharpens. The fog that usually clouds perception begins to lift. This is not placebo. This is measurable. Biofeedback equipment shows that when people consume full-spectrum mineral salt, their heart rate variability improves. Their brainwave patterns shift toward coherence, and their biofield, the electromagnetic field surrounding the body, expands and stabilizes. The archons, those forces that feed on human confusion and fear, cannot operate in a body that is fully conductive. They require resistance. They require density. They require the slow, murky vibration of a system clogged with toxins and synthetic substances. When your body is clear, when your cells are conducting cleanly, their interference cannot take hold. This is why processed food is everywhere. This is why real salt was replaced with bleached sodium chloride and called the same name. This is why iodine, a critical mineral, was added to fake salt to make people think they were getting what they needed, when in reality, they were being given a dead substance that creates density instead of flow. Jesus told his followers to keep salt in their homes for 7 specific reasons. The first reason is purification. Salt has been used for thousands of years to cleanse spaces, to preserve food, and to purify water. But its primary function is spiritual purification. When you place salt in the corners of your home, you create a field that disrupts low-frequency thought forms. Negative entities, intrusive energies, and psychic debris cannot remain in a space that is salted with intention. This is not superstition. This is energy management. The second reason is consecration. Before any spiritual practice, before prayer, before meditation, before engaging scripture, the early Christians would consume a pinch of salt. This act consecrated the body as a temple. It signaled to the nervous system that something sacred was about to occur. Modern Christians skip this step entirely and then wonder why their prayers feel empty, why their scripture reading feels like words on a page instead of living transmission. Without the salt, the body is not prepared to receive. The third reason is protection. In the book of Ezekiel, there is a strange verse that most people read past. You were not rubbed with salt on the day you were born. Scholars debate what this means, but the practice was clear. Newborns in ancient Israel were rubbed with salt immediately after birth. This was not hygiene. This was energetic sealing. The salt created a protective barrier around the infant's field, preventing attachment of entities that prey on the vulnerability of new souls entering matter. Jesus taught his inner circle to continue this practice into adulthood, to ritually wash with salt water, especially during times of spiritual warfare. The fourth reason is covenant activation. Every time you consume sacred salt, you reactivate the biological bond with the Christ frequency. You remind your cells what they are aligned with. This is why Jesus said to keep salt in your cells, not around your cells. In your cells, the salt must be internal. It must be integrated into your blood, your bones, your tissue. Only then does the covenant become unbreakable. The fifth reason is discernment. Salt has a unique property. It reveals what is hidden. It draws moisture from cells. It exposes decay, and it prevents corruption. When your body is properly salted, you gain the ability to discern truth from deception without needing external validation. You simply know. The false teachers, the manipulative doctrines, the spiritual predators dressed in religious language, they become obvious. The salt sharpens your inner knowing to the point where lies cannot land. The sixth reason is communion. Real communion is not a ritual performed once a week in a building. Real communion is a daily practice of consuming substances that create resonance with the divine. Bread alone does not do this. Wine alone does not do this. But bread, wine, and salt together, consumed with full awareness of what they represent, create a triune activation: body, blood, and covenant, matter, spirit, and the bridge between them. This is what the earliest Christians practiced in their homes every single day, not as religion, as technology. The seventh reason is resurrection, and this is the one that will challenge everything you've been taught. Salt does not decay. It is one of the few substances on earth that remains stable indefinitely. It does not rot. It does not corrode. It does not die. Jesus used salt as a teaching tool to point toward the immortal nature of the soul. You are the salt of the earth. Means you are the part of creation that does not die. You are the indestructible essence. The body falls away, but the salt, the eternal component, returns to source unchanged. Now here's how you practice what Jesus taught. Go to your kitchen right now. If you have regular table salt, throw it away. It is doing nothing but creating density. Find real salt, Himalayan pink salt, Celtic sea salt, Redmond real salt, any salt that is unprocessed, mineral-rich, and carries color. The color tells you it is alive. White bleach salt is dead. Once you have real salt, place in a glass container, never plastic, glass or ceramic only. Hold the container in both hands and speak these words. This salt is consecrated as a covenant between my body and the living Christ. Every time I consume it, I activate the frequency of resurrection. I am salt. I am light. I am indestructible. Every morning, before you eat or drink anything else, place a small pinch of this salt on your tongue. Let it dissolve slowly. As it does, visualize the minerals entering your bloodstream, lighting up your cells, creating conductivity. Feel your body becoming a tuned instrument. Then drink clean water. The salt and water together become living water, the substance Jesus spoke when he said, "Whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst again." Use this salt in your cooking, not carelessly, but intentionally. Every meal becomes communion. Every meal becomes an opportunity to reinforce the covenant. When you eat with others, offer them salt first. This creates resonance between your fields. It builds community at a level deeper than conversation. And once a week, draw a bath with warm water and dissolve a full cup of your sacred salt into it. Soak for at least 20 minutes. This is baptism, not the one-time ritual performed in church, but the ongoing practice of washing your field clean, of releasing everything that does not serve, of reestablishing your connection to Source. Within 3 days of beginning this practice, watch what happens. Your dreams will become more vivid, more instructive. You will wake up with downloads, with solutions to problems you've been carrying, with clarity you could not access before. Your discernment will sharpen. People who have been draining your energy will suddenly exit your life. not through conflict, but through natural dissolution. And the ringing in your ears, if you're one who hears it, will intensify. That ringing is a signal that you're coming online, that the Christ frequency is finding less resistance in your system, that you are becoming what Jesus called the salt of the earth. The reason most Christians have never heard this teaching is simple. If people understood that direct access to the Christ frequency was available through practices they could do in their own homes, the institution would lose its control. The power structure of organized religion depends on scarcity, on the idea that you need someone else to access God for you. But Jesus taught the opposite. He taught that the kingdom of heaven is within you, that you carry the technology in your own body, and that simple, physical substances like salt are the keys to activating what has always been there. This is not about rejecting church. This is about reclaiming what church was supposed to be, a community of people who understood the technology of ascension and practiced it together. Not a hierarchy of priests and lay people, but a gathering of equals who recognize the Christ in each other and use physical tools to maintain that recognition. Salt was one of those tools, and it still is. Subscribe to this channel right now if you have not already. Click the notification bell. This teaching is part of a series that goes deeper than anything you will find in mainstream Christian media. Tomorrow, I will release the next video, and it covers the 3 words Jesus said to speak over water before drinking it. Words that were removed from the Bible in the 6th century. Words that change the molecular structure of what you consume, like this video, so others can find it. The algorithm suppresses content that threatens established narratives. Your like is not just engagement. It is a vote for truth. And comment below with the words, "I am the salt." Let other chosen ones see your declaration. Let them know they are not alone in remembering what was buried. But the story of salt goes deeper than just its physical function in the body and its use in ancient rituals. To truly understand why Jesus centered this teaching, we must examine the esoteric symbolism of salt across various ancient traditions. The alchemists, who were the spiritual scientists of their day, refer to salt as the 3rd principle, the great mediator. They saw existence as a trinity: sulfur, the active, fiery, masculine principle of transformation; mercury, the passive, fluid, feminine principle of substance; and salt, the stabilizing, crystallizing principle of manifestation. Salt, in this view, is the bridge between spirit and matter. It is what allows the volatile forces of spirit, sulfur, and the receptive nature of consciousness, mercury, to condense into a stable physical reality. When Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth," he was using the language of spiritual physics. He was saying, you are the ones who can stabilize the volatile Christ spirit and anchor it into the density of the physical world. You are the mediators. You are the manifestors. Without salt, the process remains purely theoretical, locked in the realms of thought and feeling. With salt, the divine intention crystallizes into action, into healing, into observable reality. Consider the history of taxation. Why was salt so often the currency of choice, the substance that empires controlled? The word salary comes from the Latin salarium, which was the allowance given to Roman soldiers for the purchase of salt. This was not because salt was merely a preservative. It was because the authorities understood its essential value as a non-decaying medium of exchange. To control the salt supply was to control the biological and spiritual conductivity of the population. When real salt is scarce or replaced with a dead imitation, the people become less conductive, more dense, more easily controlled, and less capable of receiving the unadulterated spiritual transmission. A dense body is a disconnected mind, and a disconnected mind is easily managed by external forces. The suppression of sacred salt was not an accident in history. It was a deliberate strategy of spiritual domestication. The true Gnostics, who sought gnosis, direct knowledge of the divine, rather than pistis, blind faith, understood that the body itself was a laboratory for spiritual ascension. They viewed the human spine, with its cerebrospinal fluid, as the pathway for the Kundalini energy, the coiled serpent of divine power, to rise. And what is the primary component of cerebrospinal fluid that enables electrical communication? Salt. Specific mineral salts that maintain the purity and conductivity of that internal ocean. When you consume sacred salt with the intention of activation, you are literally tuning your spinal column, preparing the central nervous system to safely handle higher voltages of spiritual energy. This is the biological preparation for what the Hindus call moksha, or what Jesus called entering the kingdom. The process is physical before it is mystical. This is why the act of placing salt on the tongue first thing in the morning is so potent. The sublingual glands allow the minerals to bypass the digestive tract and enter the bloodstream almost immediately, sending a shock wave of conductivity straight to the brain and heart. It is a biological reset button. It signals to the deepest layers of your cellular memory that the covenant is renewed for the day. It is an internal declaration. Today, I will be a conductive medium. Today, I will not resist the flow of the Christ frequency. When the mainstream church replaced this potent daily practice with a once-a-week symbolic wafer, they stripped the practice of its physical power. The ritual became conceptual, severed from the biological reality that makes spiritual experience visceral and transformative. We were taught to believe in connection, rather than physically experience connection. Salt demands experience. You feel the sting on your tongue, the instantaneous rehydration of your cells, the subtle shift in your awareness. It is tangible. It leaves no room for doubt. The ancient text also connects salt to the element of earth, but earth has been purified by water and sun. This is not the heavy, inert earth of gravity and decay. It is a refined, crystalline earth that holds light. Think of a flawless quartz crystal. It is pure mineral matter, and its function is to store and transmit energy with perfect fidelity. Salt is the human equivalent of that crystal. By choosing to incorporate real, unbleached, mineral-rich salt, you are choosing to refine the earth of your own body, transforming the dense clay into a conductive, crystalline matrix capable of holding the full spectrum of divine light without shattering. The purification aspect of salt is critical, especially now. We live in an era of unprecedented electromagnetic pollution. Our bodies are bombarded daily by Wi-Fi, cell signals, and the toxic byproduct of industrialized living. These frequencies create static, noise, and resistance within the nervous system. Sacred salt acts as a spiritual and biological firewall. Its crystalline structure naturally harmonizes with the earth resonance, the Schumann resonance, which is the true foundation of human health. When your internal conductivity is high, the synthetic frequencies of the modern world have less surface area to latch onto. You become immune to the energetic noise. This is the deeper meaning of protection. The salt protects your internal signal from external interference, allowing your own Christ frequency to ring clear. And finally, return to the seventh reason, resurrection. The body that dies is the body that decays. Decay is what happens when life force leaves and density takes over. Salt is a physical representation of the immortal soul because it resists decay absolutely. By consuming it with intention, you are programming your cells with the signature of immortality. You are reminding your physical form that the deepest part of its essence is indestructible, non-decaying light. This is the ultimate promise of the teaching. Not that you will be saved by believing in a dogma, but that you will achieve salvation, wholeness, by activating the biological technology of resurrection that already resides within the very structure of your being. Keep salt in your cells and be at peace. The choice is simple: density or conductivity. The time for the domesticated version of Christianity is over. The time to reclaim the original technology has begun. 1 food, 7 reasons, 3 steps to activation. You came to this video because the salt in your blood recognized the salt in this teaching. You are the covenant. You are the conductor. You are the indestructible essence that carries the Christ frequency into a world that has forgotten what it is. Keep salt in your home. Keep salt in your body. And watch what resurrects.